like rolling on three. All that's in shot.
Pulling up with one, yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to Pulling Up with One Year. I'm here with Sarah Hewitson, the comms and production pastor here. And a quick question, what is a comms and production pastor? I ain't never even heard of that before still.
If it makes you feel any better, neither did I. So I am overseeing communications here at the church. I am making sure that digital production happens properly because coronavirus has meant that our digital platforms have increased a lot, and we want to make sure that the content we're producing is not only excellent, but also demonstrates the love of Christ really well, don't we? So, which is why we're here anyway. So we'll see what else it includes, but for now it's just making sure that things happen on the digital platforms really well.
Lit. So I'm gonna ask you something real quick. What's the most embarrassing moment ever
Okay,
in
so
Sarah's life?
you need to understand that I have a lot of embarrassing moments a lot of the time because I'm dyspraxic, which is basically means I don't have any like coordination. So I fall a lot, I drop things constantly. Yeah, it's quite hilarious. And if you pay attention, you'll see it a lot in my life. But when I was 15, I was on the brink of starting to date this guy, and it was like youth vibes. So we all hung out on Friday nights together, and everybody was like, oh, will they, won't they? And we were like, will they, won't they? And anyway, we were going to some youth social thing, and he came to pick me up with his mom was driving us and stuff. And I had said to them, when you come to pick me up, just wait at the gate, because they were like fixing our driveway and there's a giant hole in the driveway and you couldn't drive up. Makes total sense. Met them down at the gate, all good. We had youth, normal Friday night vibes where you're like flirting, but it's like Christian flirting, so it's not really flirting. And you're like, ah! Anyway, so you want to leave with a good impression. So they drop me off, I get out the car, it's pouring with rain, I go into my gate, I turn around, I wave goodbye, I take a step back, I fall in the hole. The hole which is now filled with mud and water and grossness, and then I stand up, and not only that, but I'm in the direct line of his mom's car's headlights. So it literally was like she was there and then she wasn't. And then I stood up and waved again and just like
Did she at least hop out the car and be like, you're right?
She did, and so did he, but he was literally on the floor with laughter. And I was like, this is not a great impression. We did end up dating in the end, so it obviously didn't ruin the entire thing, but we're not together now, so maybe that was, I was 15, so it was probably not meant to be anyway.
Oh,
but
it's cool. It's cool. What is your biggest fear as well?
I absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, hate disappointing people. So that's always my biggest fear, is like if people are disappointed or upset with me, it's like the worst. I've learned that actually because my identity is in God and not in other people, it doesn't matter nearly as much as my human self would like it to, but I really, really hate disappointing people. There's nothing worse than my dad's face, like as a kid, when he's like, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. It's like, oh, there it is, you know.
That's real. That's real. That's real fear. Disappointing people. That's wow. That's crazy. Nah, this is gonna go a bit deep, all right? It's gonna go a bit deep. So basically, I know you're quite good with theology, right?
Yeah.
I always see I'm at my 3 a.m. thoughts, you know, so I'm thinking I need to ask Sarah.
Sure.
So, you know how like if you don't follow God, you go to hell, right?
Yeah.
And then if you disappoint God, you go to hell. Okay, not disappoint God, but like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, if you do wrong, if you just ignore God completely, right?
Without relationship with him.
Go against him. And the devil kind of does his thing down there.
Yeah.
He punishes you.
Yeah.
So if the devil is punishing you for doing something wrong to God, isn't the devil still backing God?
Well, that's a really good question and a very interesting way to phrase it, because I think if you do think about it like that, as if...
I've had this conversation with friends and we're thinking the same thing. We're thinking, wait, hold up. If someone ignores God, so the devil should be like, oh, you've ignored him, hey. Not like, oh, hey.
It should be like a party in hell.
Yeah,
it's
not like
hey.
a party, but like...
You did great, man.
Like, yeah, I was just thinking like, oh, it's a bit mad.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things that come out from there. First of all, so the Bible tells us that the only way to God is through Jesus. So our behavior, how well we do things, whether or not we're like the best person in the world and we're kind to people always and we never ever do anything wrong, all of that means nothing if we don't know Jesus. Because sin, not just your specific sin, but like sin in all of its entirety separates humanity from God. So even if you never sin, which is impossible because we're human and we're not perfect, if you don't have relationship with Jesus, you still don't get to connect with God. That's how it works. That's why Jesus had to die, because the wages of sin, the cost of sin, is death. So someone had to pay it.
Right.
And so that's what Jesus did. So if you then become a Christian, you give your life to the Lord, you ask for forgiveness, you seek redemption, you live your life in accordance with God, even if through that whole period you do a bunch of dumb stuff and you sin all the time, because you have relationship with Jesus, you have grace. So you can't disappoint God when you know Jesus to the point where he's like, I'm out, you're going to hell.
Right.
So the only way that you would not end up in heaven is if you didn't choose to follow Jesus. Which lots of people don't, because we do live in a world nowadays where you get a lot of what you think you need from humanity. Like we're, our first world where we live right now, the amount of people who are a-religious, they're like, I don't need religion, I don't need a faith, I'm perfectly satisfied, is huge. But if you go to the third world where people are hopeless in terms of like a lot of practical needs and they're always seeking for something bigger than themselves, that's where you find religion and culture really thriving.
Yeah.
So that's because humanity is always seeking after something, but we sort of lulled ourselves in the first world into thinking that what we can make ourselves is enough, which it isn't.
Yeah.
So then you've got hell, and you've got Satan, the devil, and all of his escapades. And basically, a lot of the time in literature and in like metaphorical stuff in art, the devil is portrayed as extremely attractive because he wants you to think you don't need God. Yeah. So the Bible even talks about him as like the angel of light. Like, he looks great. He looks really awesome. Why wouldn't you want to spend time with that guy?
I thought he was ugly.
Well, he is, but he disguises himself as something better so that you'll be interested in spending time with him, engaging in his ways and doing his things, because that looks more fun than being a Christian. So he wants to entice people away from the truth. And what we understand hell to be, I mean, people don't go there and come back, so it's not as simple to explain. But generally we would say that our understanding of hell, in accordance with like Revelation and stuff like that, is it's an absence of God. It's the awareness that you need God, but you will never have access to him. And so, I couldn't particularly comment on the flames and the eternal punishment and the eternal pain and all that kind of stuff, because I don't know enough about it to be like, my word is law. But what's happening is when we've made the decision to not choose God, we then, in our eternity after death, live knowing we should have, and we never can. And so the devil wins that because we are not with God. But he's not like God being like, okay, devil, here's another one for you to punish, because God would love us all to be with him. And that's why Jesus is available for everyone. That's why it says that Jesus died on the cross for all who believed in him, so that they will not perish but have eternal life. So the devil is not like God's fixer who deals with the guys that are bad. He made the decision himself to separate from God. He wanted to try and be like God, and that's why he was kicked out of heaven, and there's all sorts of other stuff which we should talk about another time. But the devil and everything that comes with the concept of hell is the worst thing that could happen in God's eyes for us. And he is saddened when people make the decision not to follow Jesus. That makes sense?
Wow, yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. That makes a lot more sense, because before it really, there wasn't that much depth on it. Like when I seen it portrayed like in the book or on in films and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to hear it like from that perspective. Like, probably a bit better than how I've been told previously.
Oh, good.
Now I want to ask you some more chill questions. Obviously.
Sure. This got very deep very quickly.
And trust me. What are you allergic to?
Okay. man, it's the worst. Peanuts, fine. Cheese, not an issue. The thing that I'm allergic to is wine.
Wine. Is it the grapes? Is it the grapes?
It's the fermented grapes. So there's something that happens in the process which creates some sort of enzyme. And basically, one sip of red wine, white wine, or champagne, and my face just goes beet red. And it is so embarrassing because wine is nice in moderation, obviously. If you're under 18, don't even think about it. But
like fruit shoot and that.
Some of you YAs, if you've been to a good wine tasting in Cambridge, you know. No, I can't drink wine without looking like I'm very embarrassed all the time. And I mean, I do embarrass myself a lot, as we previously established. But yeah, can't really drink wine without my face. And it gets hot as well. It's like a heat wave. It's like I've been sunburnt. It's not fun.
Wow, crazy. I could tell you've got an accent in it.
I do have an accent.
From South Africa, right?
Uh-huh.
What is it like growing up in South Africa? What was it like growing up in South Africa?
I didn't realize how much of a cultural difference there was between England and between England and South Africa until I moved here in my 20s. So right. I am white, obviously, so I had a white South African experience. I was really fortunate. My parents worked really hard. I was able to go to a good school. I think in a lot of ways I was also fortunate because I grew up in the post-apartheid era, so I had friends of different nationalities and different races, and we worked really hard to create an environment for each other where we got on well. And I feel like South Africa is known as the Rainbow Nation because there is so much multiculturalism happening there. So I had incredible people from all walks of life that were influences for me, and I feel like it gave me a real textured understanding of people. There were lots of things that we didn't have, not in the sense of major poverty on my part, but I didn't realize how undeveloped South Africa was until I came to England, because South Africa is probably the most developed nation, at the very least in Southern Africa, if not the continent itself. So we were, as far as we were concerned, we were like fairly first world. But there's a lot of stuff in terms of like technology, media, travel, which we haven't quite cracked over there yet, where when we came here, I was like, this place is magical, everything runs on time, this is absurd. But I do feel like I would rather be here at this point in my life. I think God is doing amazing things for me, but there are huge parts of me where South Africa is still home. And there are some hilarious cultural differences between the UK and South Africa, which you wouldn't think were a thing, but absolutely are. Like, we're much more direct as a people. We don't say things like right and okay before we stand up to leave. In fact, once I thought I understood this thing that people do where they're like, okay, someone says right, and then you're gonna go at some point. That's what English people do. I thought it was immediate. So we had people over one night and someone was like, right, well, and I was like, great, cool, night, good to see you, good night. And they were like, it's a bit harsh. And then they left, and my housemate was like, you like kicked them out. And I was like, I didn't kick them out. I thought that they were leaving.
Yeah, they said right.
She was like, yeah, but they have to grab their shirt jumper thing and maybe another cup of tea. And I was like, I just haven't clocked it yet. So still learning.
Learning.
South African at heart, I think.
100%. That's lit. Well, that's all we got time for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Pulling Up with One Year. I've been with Sarah Hewitson, you know what I'm saying? The comms
and production pasta.
Yeah, comms and production pasta. I'm still getting used to it. And hopefully see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much.